So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start by just going through a little bit of the information that Andy had asked me to prepare for you guys. And that was really around contraindications of adaptogens. Like I said, I really advocate for people working with naturopathic doctors because it makes your results happen so much more quickly and so much more profoundly. But for some of you who don't have access to naturopathic doctors or who have not yet reached out to a naturopath in your area or me in Ontario, I want you guys to make sure that if you do choose to use an adaptogen over the counter, that you're doing so safely. So what we're going to spend a bit of time talking about today are conditions and medications to take into consideration if you're going to use one of the adaptogens. So what I have is I have just a Word document. I'm going to open it up and we're going to take a quick look at it. And then I'm going to provide it to Andy so that she can give it a copy to all of you so that you have this information. Because I don't have a doctor-patient relationship with most of you, I can't give specific recommendations as to which one you should be using. But what I can do is I can inform you so that you can make sure that you are making good choices for yourself. All right, so just give me a second to share my screen. This one and share. There we go. So I think there's about 8 different adaptogens. I'm not going to read the whole document to you guys. I'm just going to point out some interesting things in here, and then you're going to be given a copy of this for your own personal use. So when we're looking at the adaptogens, I've tried to give you just sort of a quick overview. The best uses is better covered in our module where I really talk about the energetics and the mechanisms of actions and sort of how each of the different adaptogens work. But here it's just sort of a quick summary. So rhodiola really we think of in times of mental and physical exhaustion, just to improve stamina. I like to think of it as sort of the students' supplement, people who need to be sharp and on and are working long hours and really need their mental faculties. So rhodiola is one of the safest adaptogens, and it's often one that we recommend for people who aren't working with naturopathic doctors or that people gravitate towards when they're not working with naturopathic doctors because it's got a really stellar safety profile. It's been used for hundreds of years. We don't know if it's safe in breastfeeding and pregnancy only because we can't study women who are pregnant or breastfeeding for safety. There's no reason to believe it would not be safe, but unless you're working with a healthcare professional, I would recommend exerting exceptional levels of caution. There's no medication interactions known for rhodiola, so it tends to be one where you're pretty safe to give it a try. Great thing about rhodiola too is that it starts working pretty quickly and you don't have to use it forever. You also don't have to use it all the time. You can use it now and then for short periods of time, a few days to a week if necessary during times of increased stress. Ashwagandha, love ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is great for that overstimulation state, for really calming everything down. It can lower blood sugar, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but for people who are on diabetes medications, it can be problematic. It's also recommended to avoid if you have high blood pressure, peptic ulcers, autoimmune disease, because it stimulates your immune system. So again, an immune stimulant is not a terrible idea for most of us who don't have autoimmune disease. For people who are looking at overcoming immune fatigue, where their bodies are exhausted, where they just can't seem to get over a cold and then they get another one and another one. Ashwagandha is amazing for that. But it's not so great if you have an autoimmune disease because that could rev up your body's attack on itself. You want to avoid for at least 2 weeks before and after surgery. And because ashwagandha is actually really great for increasing thyroid hormone levels, that's one of the ways that it helps with fatigue. If you have hypothyroidism, it could be an amazing, amazing support for you. And for people who have both adrenal and thyroid issues, which is incredibly common, especially in women, ashwagandha can be an amazing, amazing support. But if you have hyperthyroidism, again, it's not going to be the one for you. Medication interactions, again, mostly around ones that influence the things that ashwagandha influences, like immune system suppressants, sedatives, and thyroid medications. Licorice is one of my very favorite adaptogens. It is incredibly useful. We know exactly how it works. We know what enzymes it works on. It works so, so well, particularly for burnout states. It's also used a lot for digestive issues. I know we've got some digestion questions coming up later, but it's phenomenal, especially in its deglycyrrhizonated form, to be used for digestive issues such as peptic ulcers, heartburn, reflux, those kinds of things. Typically, we use licorice for short periods of time, and if you're using the standard form of licorice, it does contain a compound called glycerinic acid, which has been found in some studies to increase blood pressure by between 2 and 10 points. Now, for a lot of people, that's not really significant. If they're on medications that lower their blood pressure, it might not be a problem at all, but it's something to be really mindful of. The other problem with licorice is that it has so many interactions with medications. It's an incredibly powerful, incredibly effective drug, but it can influence everything from the birth control pill to antibiotics to antipsychotics to ibuprofen. Like, there's so many interactions with this one. I generally don't recommend that people use licorice without having a consult with a naturopath to make sure that it's going to be the right thing for you, used for the right period of time, and that there's no issues of you taking any of these medications. The ginseng family, so North American ginseng, the one that we get here, we grow both ginsengs in North America actually, but this one is North American ginseng. Really, really great for fatigue and brain fog kind of state. It does, again, boost the immune system, so we avoid it in autoimmune disease. It also can't be used in diabetes for the same reason as above, that it does decrease blood sugar. So again, it's not a bad thing, but it's a caution. It does contain phytoestrogens, so we want to be mindful in any estrogen-dependent conditions, so like estrogen dominance, uterine fibroids, endometriosis, and a personal history of hormone-responsive cancers. Again, because of the interaction with blood sugar, it's a caution with anti-diabetic medications. Panax ginseng, the one we think of for ginseng, really, really effective for burnout and exhaustion. I use this quite a lot in men. Tends to be a really amazing booster for stamina. Again, mostly physical stamina, but also mood. Again, it boosts your immune system, which is great for a lot of us, but not so great for people who have autoimmune diseases. It interacts with a lot of things as well. Alcohol and caffeine, just by virtue of the way that it's processed in the liver. It can further reduce blood sugar levels, so insulin and diabetic medications, immunosuppressants, clotting medications, there's so many. Holy basil, I'm a big fan of holy basil. I really like holy basil for people who have had really chronic long-term adrenal fatigue, because we can use it for longer periods of time. Phenomenal for anxiety associated with it as well. So people who are just really that tired and wired kind of picture is great for holy basil. The biggest interaction here is with anti-clotting medications because it's a blood thinner. So can't use it before and after surgery. And if you're on any anti-clotting medications, it could potentially have an additive effect. Schisandra is lovely. It in Chinese medicine is known as make women beautiful, which I think is all right. Really good for resilience, really good as a combination in a adaptogen formula, typically not used on its own. It does increase stomach acid, so there's caution in peptic ulcers. It does have some balancing effects for immune system function, so not as a concern in autoimmune disease. Some issues with antibiotics, some issues with statin medications, birth control pill. Again, there's so many. Now, I've included here the pharmaceutical name, not the brand name, because if you look, there's, aspirin comes in a million different brand names. And so when you're looking to see if your medication is on this list, please do make sure that you're looking at the pharmaceutical name and not the brand name. Go-to cola, I don't use this one nearly as much, but it really is good for the mood states, and again is found in a lot of combination formulas. It should be avoided in liver disease and around surgery. And it's really problematic if it's used for long periods of time or if there's any issues around liver function. So any medication that can damage your liver, like acetaminophen, should be avoided at the same time. Maca is typically used I don't use it so much as an adaptogen, I use it as a hormone balancer for women, particularly in their 40s, but it's great for the fatigue type symptoms there. And again, we don't know if it is safe during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Astragalus, love astragalus for immune system stuff. It's phenomenal for boosting your immune system, which again makes it contraindicated in autoimmune disease. It does have a few contraindications there as well, again, mostly around things that are immunosuppressive, but also things like lithium, which is a mood stabilizer. So I wanted to just highlight this for you guys, because when you scroll through, you'll see there are a lot of things that we need to keep in mind, conditions and diagnoses that we want to be making sure that you don't interact with or negatively impact your health in an attempt to improve your health. As well as the medication issue can be really major. And that's one of the reasons that naturopathic doctors are so heavily regulated, is because our medicine may be natural, but it's effective and it can have really powerful impacts on your body and potentially interactions with other medications or conditions. So we really need to make sure that we're doing our healthcare very safely, even if we are trying to navigate some of it ourselves.